Oregon became a national talking point for a lot of reasons in the last few years. One was they were really good, but another one was, and everybody had an opinion of Bo Nix in the nation before he showed up at Oregon. That was really valuable. And the same for Caleb Williams and USC and Lincoln and USC. So it's like the games are great. The games are the best thing. The games are the biggest thing. But in terms of getting people engaged, having quote unquote characters that they're already familiar with is really valuable.
Okay, it's game week, it's game day. That's right, welcome back or welcome to Y Option. I am your host, Yogi Roth, joined of course by our executive producer, co-founder, Jim Thornby. And today is a lot. Jim, we're gonna get right into it, man. We got games tonight. I know you're excited about those. I'm excited. Everybody's kind of playing a little bit to a degree. We all know that this expanded playoff doesn't mean your life is over if you lose, just makes it a little more challenging if you lose. And today's guest is my new partner, right? Guy Haberman. I cannot wait to share this conversation, Jim, with a guy that I'm going to be traveling with, living with, eating with, talking to for the next, next couple months. I won't talk to him more than we talk. I promise you that. I won't do that to you, man. But we're going to be around.
I don't know if that's humanly possible, but that's probably the only reason why. But yeah, dude, excited. Like literally, I know you're definitely locked in on all the Big Ten games. I'm still locked in on the artist formerly known as Pac-12 games. It's all over the place, no matter who anybody is, wherever. Like tonight, we got Deion in Colorado going up against North Dakota State. I mean, I know Deion was joking in the offseason about being mad at Rick George for scheduling that game, but we'll see if maybe he's legitimately mad at Rick George when this game is over.
The only good thing,
go ahead.
I was saying, the only good thing about that game for Colorado is that it's on a Thursday, so they can prepare for Nebraska next Saturday on the road in Lincoln, man. This is a scary one for all those Buff fans out there.
Yeah, no, North Dakota State never an easy out. And then Cam Rising, we finally get to see him back on the field tonight. So that'll be, I know the spring game, that's the spring game is the spring game. Like this is the real deal. I saw I saw people tweeting about Whittingham saying that Cam was not going to run as much this year. I mean, that's probably good luck to try and keep him from being whatever, but Cam's a smart guy. He'll figure it out and he'll do what he needs to do. But as long as that competitive edge will start to take over at some point.
Yeah, I think that's going to be kind of like Justin Herbert. Remember, he didn't run all year, and then it was the Pac-12 title game, and all of a sudden he ran all over Utah.
Then the Rose Bowl. He had the 3 rushing touchdowns in the Rose Bowl.
That's right. So, I think that's going to be Cam Rising. When needed, one of the greatest players in the country will rise up and meet that moment. I think we can all expect that. I'll say I'm really intrigued by Colorado, and not because of what Coach Prime does off the field or in a press conference. Like that's a totally different conversation. But I want to see how this team got better. I think it's a better roster. Shedeur Sanders, you know me well enough now. It's either I am not in the prove everybody wrong, keep your receipts camp. I'm in the prove yourself right camp. So I'm so curious to see what it is like. Like, what does it feel like? Is it an explosion for this team like you felt last year at TCU? There was so much dialogue around the team. How do they handle this opponent? And this opponent looks differently than it did, of course, last year. And then there's like other really sneaky, fun games. Like I look at Penn State, West Virginia. Okay, why are we talking about Penn State? Well, Penn State's going to play SC. Penn State's going to host UW. Like I think they're a CFP caliber team. But Garrett Green was out on the West Coast at Elite 11 a couple summers ago. He's a gritty dude as well. So it's going to be fun to finally get to game mode. And then when we come on this show next Monday, you better be well rested, bro. It's going to be a long weekend because we're going to have a lot to talk about. Who lost, who's up, who's down, who's sideways, who should be fired, including, here we go, LSU SC on a Sunday at 4:30. Let's go.
Yeah, that'll be fun. And I doing a little 6 degrees of separation here. Last year Colorado opened on the road at TCU with Sonny Dykes, and they were in the national championship game the year before. So a lot was made of that win. And we saw some that Colorado definitely had some dudes. I mean, that was the first time that probably, not that people didn't watch them at Jackson State, but people getting to see Travis Hunter against like a higher level of competition and being like, okay, that's a dude, and he doesn't get off the field. But it's funny now this year, Sonny is going to open the season at Stanford. So coming back to the Bay. So, it all, again, it just kind of all keeps swirling around. And then, the other portal kind of fun, weird one that I want to definitely watch will be Miami and Florida to see Cam Ward, Damian Martinez, and Mario Cristobal all team up. Yeah. I mean,
yeah. It's kind of bonkers. All right. How do you feel about Arizona? Because I got something I want to say about the Wildcats.
Yeah. I mean, I think offensively they're going to be great. I mean, you've got a gutty and talented quarterback and no Fafita. You've got arguably the best wide receiver in the country in T-Mac. I think their defense probably doesn't get enough credit. It's going to be interesting because the D-line is probably where they lost, the most from last year. But you still got Jacob Manu, linebacker. You still got Takario Davis in the corner. I mean, there's still talent on that defense. And, the first week will probably not obviously be the greatest judge. They'll be playing New Mexico, who just lost their week 0 game. And their defensive and Arizona's defensive coordinator was New Mexico's head coach last year. So there'll be that whole little added intrigue and probably a little extra incentive. Not that they need an extra incentive to win, but just maybe, a fun other storyline to follow in that game. But I think I think they will be good. Obviously, I'm going to be a little bit biased in that decision, but there's no reason why it couldn't be, other than without me trying to look through crazy tiebreakers or whatever, like before the season starts. I'm not doing that. I've had night sweats all week as I've seen these other conferences start to put out their tiebreakers and thinking about my Google Doc of like trying to break it all down every year. Thankfully, I will not be doing that this year. That will be a story come November for one of these conferences with their tiebreakers, and just bless whatever conference SID is having to deal with that this year, because when you don't have divisions, it gets dicey with all those teams. But anyway, going back to my point here, there's no reason that Utah and Arizona can't meet in the Big 12 championship game.
No doubt. I'll say this, because we love props around here. Like I'm drinking the Kool-Aid from Arizona. This is my mug, the Friends of Wilbur and Wilma that Arizona gifted me. I was just on campus there with Brent Brennan a week ago, and got to be around this team, talk to the team, do some media training, things of that nature. And I just believe this in my heart, that Tetairoa McMillan's the best receiver in America. And I don't think he's getting his just due. I understand there's a lot of talent out there, and I'm a big fan of celebrating a ton of talent. But this young man is a complete game changer type of player. He can do things that a lot of guys can't. Dino Baber, as our offensive coordinator, was my coach at Pitt, was there, of course, with everything wide out Larry Fitzgerald. He comped him about a week ago to Larry. And I think it's fair in terms of how he catches the ball.
And favorably so.
Yeah,
not just a comp, but favorably, a very favorable comp.
Well, I think he's more explosive. Like, I do think he's got more, like, he's a slasher, if you were looking like a 2-guard, right? I know Arizona loves hoops out there. He's that, but he's got the explosive, catch radius, the awareness. I mean, how many times do we see him catch it one-handed, go between his legs, and then dunk on the goalpost? Like, just things that other players can't do, including Fitz. Different guys. Larry had a seriousness to him that, of course, led him to play, I think, almost 20 years in the NFL. We'll see if T-Mac can do that. But I just think that nationally, that duo of he and Noah Fafita, everybody's going to try to take them away. I can't wait to watch the scheming up of Dino Babers and that duo. So give them their props. Their schedule is brutal. Absolutely a challenge for them in the first month of the season. We'll see how it shakes out. Some other things that I think are notable, Michigan. We got a Connor Stallions documentary. We have a notice of allegations. We don't have a quarterback necessarily in terms of they're not going to announce it. I think we'll just see who they roll out against Fresno State, which is no longer with Jeff Tedford. He stepped down. Tim Skipper takes that job. And we all remember that night and thinking 05 when it was Fresno State at the Coliseum. And it was Reggie Bush out the gate with some explosive, dynamic, magical runs. But Fresno lives by the motto of like anyone, anytime, anywhere. Like they're not afraid of anything. I don't think they're going to go in and win in the big house, but I'll be really curious how that game shakes out because that will affect a lot of things on the West Coast. You look at Oregon State, you look at Washington State in the conference, or the games they're going to play in the Mountain West Conference this season. I think will be fun to shake out. And then those two teams, I'm kind of curious to see what does John Mateer look like for Jake Dickert. I had a chance to connect and catch up with him earlier this week. The head coach of the Cougs feels good about his team. And then the other side, Trent Bray. Like, who does Oregon State play at quarterback? We'll see as it shakes out. What do they look like? I mean, this is two new coordinators, guys that have dramatic roots in the West Coast and, of course, in Oregon State. And Keith Hayward, their defensive coordinator, and Ryan Gunderson calling plays as the OC. So there's storylines everywhere, and I think that's what makes, even if there's not marquee games all up and down this part of the country, or really all the way across the country, it's going to be a blast. You referenced the Miami game. The country will be locked into that. LSU, SC. I'm in on SC. I know a lot of people in the southern part of the country who never come out to LA are not. I don't know why. You probably haven't been in practice in your life out there, at least from what my eyes tell me, Jim. I wouldn't be shocked if they beat LSU. I mean, it really wouldn't be, man. So
no, I mean, there's never a question of USC having enough talent on their team. I mean, just point blank. Miller will have some great weapons to get the ball to. And we'll see how the defense improves. Obviously, they made some investments on the coaching staff there on the defensive side. So
they made some investments. They sure did. Some
good
investments.
We'll see real quick. I mean, obviously, everyone will overreact one way or the other. Either USC is back or USC is terrible based on the result of the one game. As we're seeing with Florida State fans right now, like, a 12-team playoff has kind of changed things a little bit. Like it's not like you lose one game and your season's over. You learn from this and from whichever way it goes, and hopefully you can continue to improve throughout the season and just stay in the mix.
Stay in the mix. All right, we got you covered. We are in the mix on this episode. It's presented by our founding partner, 76. Go, 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 gone. Here we go with Guy Haberman and myself in this conversation with my partner for this season. I'm so excited as I get to unearth a lot of his story. Hopefully it'll inspire a lot of you who aspire to be broadcasters or are going to be watching us call games this fall. And I'm just so stoked for Guy. Really, he's earned this package. He's going to crush it alongside Rhett Lewis and our entire team. Can't wait to get back to Eugene. Last time I was there was training camp, and this team looks like a monster in major college football. They go up against Idaho at 4:30 Pacific. I've learned I have to start saying 7:30 Eastern as well on the Big Ten Network. But here is Guy Haberman, presented by our founding partner, 76. Oh, yes. Fired up on behalf of 76, our founding partner. We've got Guy Haberman, my partner. Partner. Oh, God. We've done so many of these episodes already, man. You've done a ton of podcasting. Check it all out at Guy's social handles. We'll make sure that is all in the show notes. But, Guy, I'm really excited about this conversation because we have done games before. We have told people on the internet that we are a crew this year alongside the ever good-looking and talented Rhett Lewis. I just wanted to have you on to learn a little bit more about you in real time, because why not? Because you go to your website and it says, is Guy your real name? And just yes. That's all the bio that we have at guyhaberman.com. All the bio
I care to write. It's a lot. I'm not a writer.
I love it, man.
I'm
just, that's a good thing because you do a lot of things that I have no shot at doing. But we get to hang out. This weekend is our first game in Adamson, and then away we go. We got SC, we got Nebraska, and a bunch of memories that we'll create this year, a bunch we've already created. But I just wanted to have you on to talk about you, your story, our crew, give a little context to those that'll be tuning into the Big Ten Network. So thank you, my man. Thank you.
Yeah, I just made dinner reservations for Friday night, actually. So
where are we going?
Dinner. Beppe and Gianni's, of course.
Nailed it. Okay, so let's start at the beginning because I'm a linear thinker and I love that way because that's the way games go. I want to hear from you because I don't know all of this story, but I'm curious, like, when did it begin for you that you wanted to do what you've now began to call a career over the last, 15 years? You've been either calling games. We met when you were in the radio.
Yeah, 20 years.
20 years. Okay, we're all getting a little older, man. How did it start? How'd you get into it?
I'm from Davis, California, Northern California, small town, college town, UC Davis, Chris Peterson, Nick Aliotti, Dan Hawkins. And I didn't go to UC Davis, but when I was in high school in Davis, my dad said one summer, like maybe it was in the fall, he's like, you got to get a job or do something, whatever, And so I called up. I'd always like done my own little radio shows and do a tape recorder, for which my mom once paid me to stop. She once paid me $1 to be quiet for 30 minutes. We were all staying in one hotel room. But so I called the local TV, the local community. I brought up all that up about Davis being small because they had like local community television, and somebody's dad would film the football games on Friday night, and then they would air on Wednesdays. And I called and said, hey, you don't have any audio. Could I be the broadcaster for those games? And they said, actually, yeah, we just got some new equipment. So we're going to have 3 cameras instead of 1. And yeah, you can definitely do it. So that's how it started.
And okay, first clarify, like, were you hitting play and record at the same time on like a little tape recorder when you were recording yourself, or was it way more advanced?
Yeah, I would like call local sports talk stations and record the call.
Come on.
I don't even know. I don't really have a memory of. I don't have really clear memories of doing it, but the tapes exist somewhere.
Where did you get the courage to do that?
Into a tape recorder?
No, even when you'd call or come up with the idea, like I think a big challenge is getting to know your voice,
yeah,
and then gaining mastery around it. And it's awkward for a lot of us, me included, when I got going. But there you were as a youngster saying like, yeah, I like this thing.
Well, it wasn't my voice, right? I mean, it was what I thought maybe I should sound like. If you listen to some of that stuff, like, or even the stuff when I got to college, my first week at Fresno State, I just went to the student radio station and said, same thing. Like, do you have anything I can do? And they had some volleyball games on radio and some softball games. So I was doing that. But it wasn't anything that I look back on it now and I give, credit to the people that encouraged me to keep going or told me I was good, because it's not good. I mean, objectively, it's bad. So I don't know. I guess I think it probably came from knowing I should do something and not having any better ideas.
What do you think
really
led you to continue doing it, continue showing up and exploring opportunities?
Just feeling like I was probably feedback from people who know you're not good enough yet, but maybe say, if you keep going, you could probably get there. So I would say that's a big thing, right? Is feeling like, oh, I'm doing it and I feel like I'm getting better. And people who I think are good at it are saying like, yeah, you got something here. I can remember, specific examples of people saying to me that.
Like what? Like what's one of the first core ones where you're like, okay,
well, I mean,
I might actually have this.
The first thing I was doing softball games on the student radio station, and the commercial radio station needed somebody, and they called, and I thought, oh, they must good. Okay, so they need somebody, and they think I'm good. Now, I mean, fundamentally, like in hindsight, they just needed truly anybody, and I was already there doing it. So it probably wasn't the grand vote of confidence that it felt like it was, but that's what it felt like it was. They could have hired one of their own people or something. I don't know. So, that would be one. That was the early one. But even the guy who hired me at the student radio station was a very savvy person. And he was really good with feedback and coaching, which, as as anybody knows, it's when you have a boss or a mentor or anybody that is willing to give you honest feedback. There's a lot of, and even in our business, there's a lot of, hey, good stuff, guys. Great show. Without any real, feedback. So I was lucky to have you need that. People are afraid to hurt your feelings or discourage you or whatever. And it takes time, right? It takes time. Like I tell young people, I get play-by-play or whoever, like whatever, people reach out to me. Could you watch this or whatever? And the thing that took me a long time to figure out that I tell to them is, if you ask a specific question, then you're more likely to get a specific answer, as opposed to watch this, what do you think? Because I give a lot of the same feedback, and it's authentic that I got, which is, hey, you sound good, keep at it. Like, you need reps, keep going, which is true. It's 100% true. But if you ask a specific question, how did you think I did? And what would you have said in this spot? Then you get a specific answer. But
ready, set. Use French fries to go. Yeah, oil from French fries. turn yesterday's leftovers into today's fuel. More power, lower emissions. 76 renewable diesel fuels all the ways you go, go, go.
I'm always amazed by people that are play-by-play and or radio hosts because of your vast knowledge of sport. I'd imagine you sport, yeah, just the concept of sport, right? Whether it's competing, whether it's a team sport, individual sport, like I just think there's a beauty to that.
Yeah.
So for you, like what did you play growing up, or what did you lean into? Like what kept you coming back to the TV or coming back to the radio? Was it a sport, or just was it the idea of broadcasting, competing, teamwork? What was it?
It was playing 100%. Like playing baseball, playing basketball. I loved watching. I played a little bit of football. I loved watching football. But baseball was the first thing I loved for sure. I thought I was going to USC to play baseball. And then my high school baseball coach was like, "You're not even really playing baseball here." Now they were good. They won a section championship, but it was, so, and 1,000 jump shots, like 1,000 a week. I was shooting before school, after school, at school. So it was just playing. I just loved playing sports. I watched games. I listened to games. My dad was in the Air Force, so we moved around a lot. So when we lived abroad in Turkey, I was cutting out box scores because we had some games. We'd get like Monday Night Football and the Super Bowl. I always, as a chubby kid, man, it was a can of Sunkist, a tower of Pringles, and the Super Bowl kicked off at like 3 a.m. I was like, that was me, right? Monday Night Football, I was waking up early to watch the end of Monday Night Football before school. So it was just games. I loved.
Wow. So where did you live? Where did you live growing up? Like what's the trajectory?
Yeah, well, I was born in Israel, not Air Force related. That's where my mom's from. So my dad was there working. His mom's from there. And then he went to school he'd gone to Maryland, and then he went to University of Maryland Dental School. Then we lived in Omaha. I'll cruise through. My parents were just here this weekend. They found the house that we lived in Omaha. It's on the way from the Omaha airport to Lincoln when we're there week 3. So
we're going 100%. Yeah.
Hey.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You guys watch BTN this weekend? You gonna watch? Then we lived in Arizona, Luke Air Force Base, Arizona, Incirlik Air Force Base in Turkey, Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, and then Travis Air Force Base in just out Vacaville, Northern California. So that's where we moved to Davis.
What do you think
just
all
before
those,
my freshman year?
Yeah. So what do you think all those experiences, because you're kind of describing, obviously your life, but also the life of coaches' kids to a degree, or those who also serve in the military and their families. How do you think it impacted you when you look back on it now?
It was awesome. I feel like it was the best possible combination for me, and that by the time we moved and settled, I was about to start my freshman year of high school. So I had one, that was consistent, and my parents still live in Davis. But it was being dropped into a new school every 2 years was, it's a learning experience. Having new neighbors every 2 years, and they were people that, for the most part, I was going to schools that were military kids. Not always. San Antonio, I didn't, but for the most part, you were kind of, especially the younger years. And then an appreciation, like moving is one thing, living in a developing nation, when you walk off the Air Force Base in Incirlik, Turkey, and a meal. I can remember we were there when I was like 9. And at that point in time, I was mowing the lawn for $2 a week. So I had some sense of like how much a pack, and then I'd go buy baseball cards. So I understood like what kind of stuff cost. And I just remember the first night we were there, we went off the Air Force Base for dinner, 5 of us. I remember dinner was like $7.35. And I was like, I don't think that's crazy, right? Like that's insane. And kids would come up and offer to watch your car for a nickel. They'd go up to whoever got out of the driver's seat, like, watch your car for a nickel. That's an eye-opening. I mean, I don't even know how I could put in the context of value of an experience like that, right? Okay, it doesn't mean like, oh, I always have great perspective. I'm not saying that, but it just is especially when you're young, to see that and understand my life is not everybody's experience is pretty useful, pretty valuable.
That's an incredible story, and thank you for sharing it. And in the perspective side, I want to lean into of like your job as a play-by-play individual, as the guy who's describing what is happening to millions at home, is to offer perspective. How do you think if you kind of took a red thread from that moment and you're seeing, okay, this is how much dinner is, this is a nickel to watch your car, to now standing in the booth on Saturday night, do you think there's a correlation in terms of how you view the world and how you view your craft?
I don't know. I mean, it's probably hard to separate, like on a deep level, all those experiences and what they create. I think I appreciate, for me, I feel like I appreciate what every individual athlete, just knowing how competitive, and anybody who's in, and most people are in some competitive industry, knowing how valuable every rep feels to you. I think it's probably more that for me when I, go to a practice or do a game or whatever. And really feeling from like my years of doing minor league baseball, when the only people listening are the parents or the family members. I did AAA baseball for 3 years. And if you said something about a player that was wrong, or they would know about it when you went down to the batting cage the next day, because it's only their family that's listening. And they really care, there's not 7 articles being written about Yogi Roth, the right fielder. That's it. That's all they get. So like the experience of doing minor league baseball and doing, I did the A's pre and post game show for a few years. And so like walking every day, I'm going to be in the clubhouse the next day. So whatever I said on the post game show, I have to be ready to defend. Or if I'm calling a game and I say somebody, whatever, like he should have had that ball in the 4th, right? Like he's going to say something to me the next day at the batting cage. That's a really valuable experience. Doing arena, there was I don't know if you even know this existed. There used to be, about the Arena League, Yokes?
Sure do, yeah.
Do you know about Arena 2?
Scranton had a team that when I grew up.
Scranton Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah,
no,
sure did.
Is that a place? Wilkes-Barre?
Yeah. Oh yeah, Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Yeah.
Oh, Barre. Yeah.
Yep.
Scranton Wilkes-Barre. We went there. They had a squad. I did Arena 2 football where I made $200 a week, and that was more than the players made. Right? These were guys, like, you talk about chasing dreams, right? Like long shot dreams that people are telling them, like, what are you doing? Driving in this minivan. The trainer is driving one, and Fred Biletnikoff Jr., the coach, is driving the other one. That's the squad. You guys are on different flights. Like, what is going on? Like, seeing guys that dedicated to the dream, I would say that probably is more front of mind in terms of doing a game and like just wanting to make sure I say somebody's name right. I have an easier time connecting those dots than the childhood thing, but yeah, I mean, I guess it's probably just you try to have a respect and appreciation for everybody's role. I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah,
everybody's chasing something.
I mean, a huge part of even like why I have this ball behind me is like, it's just a great daily reminder that we don't exist without the ball, without the players, without the coaches, without the game, without the craft. Like there's no broadcasters. So for you, can you hit a couple of the jobs that you've had that have led you to where you're going to be on Saturday night in prime time when the Oregon Ducks kick off their season?
Well, I just named a couple of them. Doing the minor league team was the Fresno Grizzlies, the Giants AAA team, San Francisco Giants AAA team. So they had some good players, Madison Bumgarner and Buster Posey. And I did before that. My first. When I got to Fresno State, I was doing a show that was on like local TV. And then I was doing, I would do like high school football games on the radio. But then I would also produce some of the high school football games that were on a local TV station and the junior college basketball games. So that was an awesome experience, like getting to be in the truck and producing, because the person who was doing play-by-play was like the voice of high school football forever in Fresno. And Fresno has Central California has great high school football. For people who don't know, it is. It's not the best high school football in the state. The North and the South still have of California. still have the teams that win the championships for the most part every year. But I would say, having lived in Northern California and Central California, you can tell me about Southern California. To me, Central California is the most kind of authentically small town football vibe that you get when you watch like high school football movies. That's Central California. Small towns, like really small towns. Friday night's a big deal. Northern California it's a pro sports town. Southern California is pro sport. Central California, high school football really matters. So I did a lot of that, and it felt like a big deal. You'd go do a high school football game at Clovis East or Clovis West or Sanger or Central or Kingsburg. And it was a big deal that the high school game of the week was there. Like, it mattered. It didn't matter that the phone line would go down 6 times in the broadcast. So that stuff, like really having a touch directly to the audience was fun. So Pac-12 Network, obviously, where you and I met, we did a lot of work there. Some of it together, but basketball and a lot of football and gosh, I'm forgetting so much stuff. It's a lot of stuff that definitely probably felt like love of the game. You're like, how you gonna get from here to there? And there's luck mostly. Yeah, I would say
there's a lot of that, but there's also talent, which you clearly are. When you found out you were going to join the Big Ten Network and get a full game package, where were you? What's the story behind when you learned? And and did you take a minute by yourself and be like, man, from Arena 2 to Power 4 football in the Big Ten as they expand is a pretty fun path?
Yeah, I was right here at my desk. I was doing a podcast, and I saw the phone ring. I saw the name, and I was like, oh, I better get off this podcast fast. It went to voicemail. So there was like 8, probably like 7 minutes where I was like, oh my God. And for me, like, it was a flashback. Several years ago, I was a finalist for a job that I was on radio when they called. I'd gone do a couple auditions, that sort of thing. And it was a big job. And I was on radio. So it was on voicemail that I heard that I did not get the job, right? For whatever reason, this time I was like, okay, yeah, this is good. But there was like 6 minutes there, 7 minutes where I was just like, oh my God, wrap this up and let's listen to this voicemail real quick. It was, I'd thought about that a long time, for people who getting a football packet. I've done football. I've tried to explain this to like friends of mine who don't work in our industry. Right. And it's like, well, you've been doing football games. I'd say, yeah, but it was not exactly the same as, hey, here's your crew. Here's your analyst. Here's your sideline reporter. Here's your producer. Here's your director. It's going to be a crew of 12 to 15 people, the same every week, which is the best part of doing television, is being on the team. I mean, it really is. There's so much that goes into it when you watch a game, that when it goes well, it's like a play working, right? It's 11 people pulling on the same rope, all those cliches. But it's true. Like, sometimes I watch some football plays, a deep ball, some quarterback hits a deep ball, and you're like, look at all the things that had to go right for that ball to land exactly in the right spot and that guy to catch it and that to be a touchdown. I mean, it's crazy. I understand. I really do feel like I have some understanding of why coaches are the way they are. Because if you really watch film, and I watch it, but not like a real analyst like Yogi, like you just see all the things that go wrong and go right. When you go to a practice, you see every little thing that can go wrong and go right. And that's, what we do is kind of that way too. The whole crew can do something right and I can screw it up, right? Or I can have what I thought was this great moment, but the whole thing doesn't work if everybody's not hitting it out of the park. So it's so cliche, and it's like, I don't want to. Sometimes it can sound, I think, a little insincere. We'll be like, oh, the crew, but it is equal parts everybody, and the whole thing has to be in sync, or it doesn't work. But then it works. It feels like flushing a driver, or when you hit the ball, when you baseball, when you hit it right on the barrel, or when you swish a jumper and pick up. it's exactly what you've been trying to do. So anyway, I had all of those feelings, I think, kind of feeling like, but then, the next thing that happens, Yogi, immediately is like, oh, well, now I have to actually I have to earn it. After you get it is when you then have to earn it. You feel like you earned it up front, but no, that's someone's taking a chance on you. Now you got to earn it.
So how do you navigate that? Because I bet a lot of young broadcasters who are going to listen to this and have tracked your career may feel that when they get their shot to call Oregon Duck Student Radio or USC, or maybe get their shot at another network. There's a navigation around that. I'm curious how you approach it.
You cannot skip steps. You cannot be the person that has the experience that can handle the situation that goes sideways until you've done it. So the thing that everyone told me that I was always annoyed, like, oh, you just say I need more reps. Like, no, it's true. That's actually exactly that. It's true. I would have loved to have had, 10 years ago, you would have loved that job. I wouldn't have been as good though. I wouldn't have been as ready. So there's a fine line between figuring out how to treat your rep like it's the Super Bowl, but without actually, most reps are not the Super Bowl. So if it sounds to everybody like you're doing the Super Bowl, you're actually doing the wrong thing. So it's a fine line. To me, there are a couple things that really, there's different things that happen over the course of your experiences that crystallize and lead to something else. One was working with you, and you told me about this quarterback thing you have called PACE, plays after critical errors. Like a quarterback throws an incompletion or a pick. What does he do next? Play after critical error. So that was one thing in my mind, right? But the other thing that goes hand in hand with that is I'm not a good golfer. I don't think it's interesting when most people talk about their golf game. So I'm not about to do that. But one thing being bad at golf taught me was that if you start a round of golf trying, today is the day I'm going to shoot the best score ever, or today is the day I do a perfect broadcast, that is not the way to approach that. I mean, it doesn't mean you're not striving for that, but that is not the way to approach anything you do. I think it sets you up to need to then have the right mindset when you make a critical error. It's when you're not hunting it that it all kind of comes together. And then you learn that like the imperfections are the things that create moments where you can kind of shine. So that's what that's what I would tell people. It's like, prepare really well. And the biggest thing for me was learning that the preparation was just about freeing myself up for when the game started. It wasn't about using all of that preparation in the game.
One of my favorite things to talk to people about, high performers like yourself, or those that are actually playing in the sport, is what's your pre-performance routine? Like, do you have one? Like, do I need to make sure that you have like a double latte? And Ted Robinson used to tell a story like Keith Jackson wanted like I think it was like a orange soda or something like that when he's his PA back in the day, and he got yelled at when he brought too much ice or something like that. But whether there's something fun like that, like I like a warm cup of coffee, for instance, but I also have a real diligent pre-performance routine. I'm curious for you in terms of your preparation, and maybe take people into the weeds a little bit on the broadcast as we kick this thing off in a couple days.
I've worked with a guy the last few years who, when he was young, his job was to pour the whiskey in the fourth, or was it vodka, in the fourth quarter of Monday Night Football for Don Meredith, Frank Gifford, and Howard Cosell. That was his job. He was like 19 years old. He was job to pour the vodka in the fourth quarter. I've got a little bit of a new routine this year just because I had vocal cord surgery this offseason, a little off-season surgery.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
And so I've got, I don't have it here. I've got it's basically like a nebulizer. It hydrates, it breaks the water molecules into smaller molecules than a regular, like what's the thing you put in like a kid's room to make the air?
Humidifier.
A humidifier.
Yeah,
so that your vocal cords can absorb it when you're like, hotel rooms, you're sleeping, it's dry. So that's added to the routine this year. And then some vocal cord warm-ups, which I've never done before. Those have been prescribed to me by my vocal coach. Those are being added to the routine this year. And then the other thing is I just try to rap through names as quick as possible, right? Like Seven, Roth, a Thornby, right? Like you never memorize them all, but it's just if I can know who's who, it gets me through the play faster. It gets the ball to you faster. It gets the ball back to me faster. You just kind of stay ahead, and then that's when things can really flow. So I don't, probably try to probably won't be joining you for hot yoga on Saturday mornings.
Hey, that's okay, man. That's
But
okay.
I appreciate that's part of you. I wish that was part of my routine. Yeah. I mean, it's good to try and loosen up, but I'm also I need to like be watching the college football pregames and like know what did Dave say? What did Ashley say on the BTN pregame? What did they? Oh, and then it comes back, and it always works. It always comes back.
Always
In the third quarter, like Yogs. Well, you saw what Dave said this morning on the BTN on pregame, right? He said Michigan, both quarterbacks are gonna get snaps today. I just made that up, but so it's just to watch stuff and kind of go over my notes. That's the biggest thing. Go over when I get down in the booth. I take my big spotting board and I'm going through it, highlighting. I'm just filtering, right? Like it's just about, okay, everything's on here. I'm not going to use, what are the high level things I need from this? So the whole week is about filtering and distilling and distilling and distilling and distilling. And then that's what I'll do next to you in the booth on Saturdays, kind of distill some more.
Or I guess maybe when or how did you develop the confidence to know when to kind of turn it off? Like there's nowadays, I remember talking to Holly Rowe about this years ago. She does sideline for the biggest game in the country every weekend. And she would say like, there's always something like somebody's Instagram page. Did I not see this? Did I not read that?
Yeah.
And she said she got to a point, I'm going to paraphrase here because it was incredible advice. She said at some point she had to realize that on the field for her or us up in the booth, our job is to take people to a place they can't be, especially down on the sideline. So yes, I can have every pre-produced story and this kid did this on his social media and this kid accomplished that. But at some point you have to say like, I'm going to tell you what actually is happening that you don't know about. And I thought that was really cool. And it unlocked me a little bit of saying, okay, come like Wednesday night, I'm going to go hang out with my kids. I'm going to hang out with my wife. The hay is in the barn and everything from here on out is bonus. And then you get to your coaches meetings on Friday and you go to practice and like you're adding to it, but never feeling as though like I have to read or watch every YouTube video or every article written, by, the beat writers of the respective teams. And that took a while, I think, for me to kind of garner that type of confidence. I'm curious for you where you net out around like when to say stop so you can then be at your best and at your peak when the lights go on.
It's hard. I mean, if there were 9 days in a week, we'd spend 9 days preparing for the game, right? Like that's when you're going on the hike, I'm in the hotel like, oh, but it's like, I don't know, what am I doing? Just making myself feel better? Or I'm actually getting something accomplished.
Right.
For me, it was a couple things. It was one, seeing other guys who do it at a high level. I used to take a lot of pride. I should have brought a board here. I have a small version of it. But like I went to Oregon practice the other day and I took out this is a mini version of my board, right? Offense, defense. And I used to take like a lot of pride, like, oh, I'm going to have so much stuff on here. It made me feel good. It's just like, I thought it made me think I was prepared, that I had all this stuff written down. But then the game would happen and I couldn't it was just too much. It was like flipping through an encyclopedia. It wasn't helpful. So first I just needed to filter it and pare it down. Less was actually more. You're paralyzing yourself. Mm-hmm. And then it was seeing other people do it at a high level with less on their board, quote unquote, than I had. And yet they were doing it really well. It was very conversational. And I've always strived if I think about what are the things that I want a broadcast I'm involved with to be, I do want it to be conversational. That's what everybody wants. Easy to consume, right? Digestible. And several years ago, I didn't really have much work in the summer, and I have a good friend of mine named Aaron Goldsmith, who is one of the Mariners broadcasters and did huge games for Fox for several years, football, college football, and baseball. And he said, "Hey, would you want to come be my kind of stats guy for 4 MLB games?" It was like 4 Saturdays, whatever. He's like, you can come hang. We'll go to, we'll hang out. We'll have steak dinners and whatever. And I was like, yeah, actually, I would love to do that because I never get to see, you never get to see another person in your role. There's only one of you at every game. So I never get to work with another play-by-play person. I never, you know what I mean? Like I never got to see how somebody else's brain thinks. And I've gone into other booths but if you're not wearing that headset, you don't hear what the producer's saying. You know, it's not. And he was working with a really high level crew, right? It'd be like John Smoltz or AJ Przinsky and the producer with the highest level producers and Pete Macheski. Like, and so I got to just be around these people, this crew that was operating at the highest level. And I got to see his brain. And I also got to see how I could contribute to him in the same way that our statistician or spotter contributes to me when I'm in the other chair. It's really valuable to have somebody who can be ready with a note card that says, here comes Yogi Roth out of the bullpen. He's blown 4 straight saves. Like, oh, we should probably get Yogi out of there. But so it was really valuable to see like, okay, this is, I'm seeing it now from this other view. And it just kind of clarified some things for me. It's just, how do people take notes? I mean, it's really the simple stuff that if you sat me down with the 5 best play-by-play people in the world, I would not ask them their favorite, like, what was your favorite story, the best stadium? I want to know, like, how do you take notes?
Yeah, totally.
Every time, like once every month, NBC will have a shot in their booth from behind of Tirico and Collinsworth. And you can get a glimpse of Tirico's. I'm like, and I'll screenshot it. And I've got the screenshots. I'll send them to buddies or other like static guys or spotters that I know and be like, what's happening here, you think? Because you'll see like a monitor and then and I'm like, that's all I want. Like, Mike, explain your situation here to me. Because how can I be better? It's just really, I don't know. I love that stuff. But anyway, it was just seeing it from another point of view that really helped me.
That's cool. All right, 3 more. We'll get you out of here. We got a game this weekend. We got the Ducks against Idaho. And then next week we got USC and Utah State. 2 teams on the West Coast. Clearly a part of the Big Ten now. One team a favorite. You could argue for the national championship. I think somebody on game day might have picked them to win it. I don't recall necessarily if it was Nick Saban or Herb Street or whomever. In addition, you got USC, who
I think it was Herbie.
Herbie, okay. SC, I know Saban was high on him, and it felt like that just flipped the narrative from other people that are on TV. For you and these 2 teams, because this podcast is all about college football through the lens of the West Coast, what do you think people don't know about either one of these programs? Do you plan on sharing, celebrating, elevating a little bit around the stories of these 2 programs? Or programs, I should say.
Programs, yeah, thank you. What do people not know about Oregon? I think what's going to be really cool about that week 1 is just kind of, not that they haven't been on national television, that they haven't been on ABC. Of course they have, but showing kind of what that stadium atmosphere is like. And students aren't in yet, but I think they'll still have a really good crowd. Showing that environment from elite, like they are part of this thing now, right? So it kind of feels like, I think it's so cool that we get to do these 2 games, because it feels like, even though certainly people in other parts of the country, they've watched Oregon games before, but now they're part of the same league. And it's almost like we get to kind of tour guide them. Mm. It's not to say we're going to tell people all this stuff they don't know, but that part to me feels really cool. It's like, hey, Oregon is part of this other thing now. You guys are this is part of you now, and the same for SC. But Southern California has been on display every year. This is not, they don't play in the Rose Bowl, but Palm Tree is like, everyone's seen Palm Trees on a big stage. Eugene's very college town, right? In the best possible way. So I think that's the thing that's cool. I mean, the movement of Dan Lanning from being a national championship assistant coach at Georgia, being a Broyles Award finalist twice, to being Oregon's head coach, that helps Oregon's profile. Dylan Gabriel, who everybody knows, right? He's at Oklahoma, being Oregon's quarterback. It's the same thing. Like, Oregon became a national talking point for a lot of reasons in the last few years. One was they were really good, but another one was, and everybody had an opinion of Bo Nix in the nation before he showed up at Oregon. That was really valuable. And the same for Caleb Williams and USC, and Lincoln and USC. So it's like, the games are great. The games are the best thing. The games are the biggest thing. But in terms of getting people engaged, having quote unquote characters that they're already familiar with is really valuable. It really helped the Pac-12, I thought. Michael Penix especially, the same thing. Like, everybody had an opinion on him coming at it Indiana. So it really helped the profile of the West Coast the last several years. Chip going to UCLA. So, there are people at Oklahoma that know Dylan Gabriel better than I know Dylan Gabriel. But there's a new version of Dylan Gabriel now.
Yeah.
He's the Oregon quarterback. And so we get to show that one. And he's the guy that's so proud of being from Hawaii and wearing number 8. And who Dan Lanning is telling him, man, you got to speak up. You got 8 months here. We're trying to win a championship, I think that's the thing with Oregon is Dan Lanning is building something so sustainable and so big. But also, how many shots do you get to really be one of the top 3 teams with a chance to win the national championship? And a quarterback as good as Dylan Gabriel and a team is physically ready, and if Dan Lanning wins a championship, when you win one, I think historically in the first 3 years of being a head coach, it can really change just supercharge your trajectory. And then SC, is Miller, to me, the big story, one of them as I see it is Miller, he might be a top 4 quarterback in the Big Ten. I don't know. We all get to see this for the first time. But he's very different than what Lincoln had in Caleb. But look at what Lincoln's done with quarterbacks, right? So that's it. Can they stop how much better do they have to be on defense? I thought Danton Lynn was an NFL coordinator candidate last year. He was. So is he the next head coach somewhere? So can they be, the guy I think, do you remember what Jim Leavitt did when he got to Colorado and then when he got to Oregon? He took those defenses. It was year by year. I don't remember but it was 125th to 85th to 55th to 15th, right? It was bam, 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 bam. Can Danton Lynn do that this year at SC? To me these are such huge national stories, man. It's so great.
Lincoln Riley said something to us. We were there for our Big Ten training camp show, and I'll never forget it because it was spot on. You referenced it a minute ago talking about Oregon, but he said he talked to his staff and was he had to remind them, he said, of you don't get unlimited amount of chances at leading a program like Oregon or USC or any team really as a head coach, as a staff, as the collective unit of 120 players. He's we get one shot at this thing. We got to go for it. And I just think that is echoed so much. It was echoed earlier this week in my conversation with Pete Carroll on this podcast of the best teams cut it loose. They got to go for it. So before we cut you loose, I got to ask this one. I'm your partner. Rhett is a partner. And we got Denny Blunt, dad of 2. Congratulations to our producer. What do you believe? What matters most for you in each one of those roles as producer, sideline analyst, and booth analyst?
I was having a debate with a couple people. We had some meetings a few, 3 weeks ago. And I don't remember. I think you were standing there. I don't know if you stayed for this because it was offensive to you as an analyst. But me and another play-by-play guy. I said it was Connor Onion who was doing games with Helfrich this year. I was if it was like college football, you build a player or a video game. It's 80% speed, 90% arm, but you can't. I said, how low are you willing to go on your analyst to get a 95 producer? That was our big debate.
What was your answer? You're low. Give me
it was all over the place, right? It was are you willing to take a C analyst and an A producer? Would you rather have 2 Bs? Would you rather have? I don't even remember how that discussion wrapped up, but you'd rather have A's across the board, which is what I've got. Rhett is our sideline reporter. Rhett is, I don't know, how far are we from the field? We're a long way from the field. Rhett is on the field. He's the only guy on the field with a microphone other than the head referee, right? Those are the 2 people that have a microphone on the field. So he gets to, I've done that role. I think you've done that role. It's awesome. You get to read, you get to hear what people say to each other. You get to read their lips up close. You get to see things happening. So, that's the role, right? He'll go in with a bunch of ideas of things he wants to say, and then the game happens, and there might be 10 things that happen on the field that for all the cameras you have in the world, there's still things the human gets to see right there behind the bench. So he gets to have a view that nobody else gets to have. You're the expert. My job is to make sure that I don't get in the way of you telling the viewer why things are happening. There are 22 people on the field on every play. All of them have a job to do. The percentage of time they do the right job, I don't know. But it's really complicated. It's really simple, but it's really complicated. It's really simple. And people, it's just it's a game of force and desire. That's true, but it's also really complicated. So I think that's cool to like see it happen and to see somebody like you who can really understand it quickly and communicate it quickly. And then the producer, man, is like, the producer is just, I'm not going to say the most unsung, because I think people who work in this business understand how valuable a great producer is. But a producer producer makes or breaks the whole thing, like changes the whole vibe, the energy. The producer guides the whole thing on the fly, understands what direction to drive it in, understands when to direct us or to, in my ear, say, hey, what about, should they be going for 2 here? Or maybe not to say anything. Like, the producer is handling a whole truck of really talented people who are saying, hey, I think we could get this in, or I got this graphic right now, or what about, you want this replay? Which replay angle do you want? As the director's changing camera angles, as Rhett's in his ear saying, I got something here, as Yogi's in talkback going, hey, give me that. Let me get that again. Let me get that again. As I'm going off on some other thing, as we told you earlier today, take a look at this graph. So like, producers, I could not, without a doubt, do that job at the level that I could do it with 3 cameras, and I could not do it at this level, right? It's just, I am fascinated by producers. I would love to be in it. The way they work, it's just, it's, I think, so high pressure, and their job is to sound really calm in our ears, because, you know, we're the talent and we can't be bothered. Don't inconvenience me. Don't yell too loud. Right? That's what I'll be doing before the game. Like, can I get a little less of Denny, a little more of Yogi, a little less of Denny, little less of Denny, little more of me, please. A little more.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, it's just, sometimes we get in it. We think we're high performance athletes, and the producer's job is to allow us to feel that way. Right.
Yeah.
But still direct the whole thing. So anyway, everybody's got, and we're not, what is that? 4 people?
There's so many more. Yeah, you're exactly right. I think my favorite part of a game
It's 8%
day,
of the crew.
Yeah, my favorite part of game day is meeting with the camera crew a couple hours before the game, just sharing, like, you're going to see stuff that I don't see. And there's nothing better in a broadcast when, like, the low end zone's like, I saw that hand signal that the X receiver gave to the boundary, and that means a fade. And it's like, fade is coming. You circle the guy and it's a touchdown, and everything worked. So you're right. It is a beautiful environment. I think, you know, in closing here, Guy, like, playing is the coolest thing ever, right? Whether you were shooting jump shots, and by the way, Guy's a pretty good jump shot. I saw him in my backyard a couple weeks ago. Whether you're hooping, whether you're playing football, I think the next closest thing is coaching, because you really feel a locker room and feel a growth of a team. And then the next best thing, I think, is broadcasting. I really do. And I think that the really healthy crews, the really high achieving groups, they feel as though they're a team. You know, there's people that do a ton of crazy stuff during the week, right? They'll be calling a basketball game, they'll producing a game show, you name it. I mean, everybody's working a bunch of different angles, right? I'm hosting a podcast, whatever. You do that as well. But to come together on Saturdays in front of this arena of 60, 70, 80, 100,000 fans, let alone a couple million on television, it's awesome. Like, it's such a beautiful connection among the group.
Can you share with people? Can I ask you a question? We're probably over time.
Why not? Yeah, we're over, but it's all right. Jim Thorman's a great producer. Go ahead.
I get asked this question a lot, and I give people, I think I know the answer sometimes, but not every time. But I get asked this question a lot. It's like, how does your analyst know before the replay, as the replay is airing on TV, right? Big running back breaks off through the B gap for 15 yards. And the analyst immediately says, all right, I want you to watch 55 right here. He's going to hold this block. And people ask, how does the guy know? He hasn't even seen the replay yet. Does he see the game that well? What's your answer to that? How do you know?
Yeah, I think, you know, as you referenced earlier, you love talking to other broadcasters. I do as well. You know, I really think, at least in my experience, it's the only one I have, coaching at SC for 4 years allowed me to view the game differently. Why? Well, for 2 years, I sat up in the press box for every game next to Lane Kiffin as he called plays. My job was to read coverages, what front is happening, what was the blitz, and did we run the right route, what was the combination. Not really quarterback play. Like, I wasn't watching the pocket. I wasn't watching the throw. I was watching everything else. And then I did 2 more years down on the field where I was signaling in the plays, and really I was a quarterback coach then. So you're really dialed on that, and you're trying to dictate as they're making a check at the line of scrimmage on which way to run it. It's based on the alignment of an interior defensive tackle. Well, it's hard to see anywhere, let alone down on the field. But I was trained by Steve Sarkisian to really how to see it. So I think that was like one of my greatest feathers in my analyst hat, if you will, of I was coached on how to see the game. So when I look at it from the top, like I'm always going from a couple different angles. One is I'm playing the game sometimes. Like if it's a 2-minute drive, like look out, get out the way, guy, because I'm going to be predicting it's quarterback play. It's how do we have to navigate this situation? Other moments in the game, I'm saying, all right, let me play linebacker right here. Or if I'm the defense, I'm calling this. And you're trying to predict it pre-snap and then see if it comes through. And then I think the other stuff is where you get confident, where you just trust it. Like I've seen enough, call it power plays, where I know it's going to be down, backside pull. And you just can kind of feel it. So to your point of like studying the roster, you're just kind of in your head, you're like, all right, that's 55. He started at left guard. Or before the series, I'm asking the spotter, hey, what's the offensive line in this game? Because I know they're going to might rotate a couple players. And then you just got to trust it. And that to me has been probably the biggest growth in my last 5 years of like, I'm a walk-on preparer, over-preparer by trade. But I think you get to the point, and if you ask me like what matters most to me, it's really the game. So, and by that, I mean letting the game unfold. So I might think they're going to do this or anticipate they're going to do that. But if they don't, I don't hold on to it anymore. You know, like it's like, okay, cool. Like my board is stacked with info. And it's just a place for me to put everything I learn. I read it once Friday night, read it once Saturday morning, read it once at the stadium. Then I'm barely looking at it the rest of the game, unless I'm writing a note on it. And that
I've looked at your board a lot. I can't figure it out. I haven't figured it out yet.
That's all right. Well, my first broadcast, I remember calling Dave Sims, who now does the Mariners, and called our games back in the Big East on ESPN for a while. And I got my first break.
Hey, now.
I'm calling games on Fox College Sports. I think it was my first game was Kansas, North Dakota State. It was an upset. And I remember being like, what's a board? He's okay. You want to buy this big poster board and you write all these things on it. And I bought one and I'm in my little studio apartment on the floor. And I'm like, my handwriting sucks. What am I doing? I come from coaching where you typed everything into a call sheet. So I'm like, I'm going to do it like it makes sense to me. Yeah. So
that's good. I'm not, if that's not supposed to make sense to me, I'm not knocking it. I just haven't figured your brain out totally yet.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's what we got this whole season to do, baby. We're just going to dial it in. Guy Haberman, my partner. On a serious note, Guy, I'm so honored to be on your team, be a part of our team. I've been gifted really special play-by-play people throughout my career. In totality of Steve Physioc, Kevin Calabro, Ted Robinson. I've had sprinkles of you, JB Long, and a couple others. Like I feel like the luckiest analyst in the world because I have people that love this craft and are selfless. And I hope to echo that to a degree. And I think the coolest thing is being a part of something greater than yourself. And we get to do that in a matter of days. So you're on your way to Eugene. I'm going to go to Portland, get my yoga session in at Yo Yogi, get my favorite latte, and drive down and meet you. And we're going to hang out, man. Can't wait.
I'm excited, Yogs. Here we go. I didn't think this is weird. I didn't think the season would. We spent all this time talking about theoreticals. Now we get to call a game.
Yeah, we get to call the game. We get to, baby. What an opportunity. Check us out, 4:30 Pacific.
You
Pacific Prime.
7:30 Eastern. You got to get used to talking in Eastern time now. I know this is through a West Coast lens, Yogs, but. Yeah,
we'll go there. I'm happy to do that. I grew up in Pennsylvania. 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Prime time, the Ducks and the Vandals. We got you covered. 7 ways to Sunday, man. We're going to talk about that team out west. The Oregon Ducks and the Vandals of Idaho. Kenyon Sadiq. There's a bunch of those guys. You're going to know that name by the end of Saturday night. I promise you that. So that's Guy Haberman, Yogi Roth. Guy, lots of love, man. Travel safe. It's the Afterglow. Yogi Roth, Jim Thornby. That was Guy Haberman presented by our founding partner, 76. Go, go, go. Gone. I'm gone. About to hop on a plane, Jim, as this episode drops. Takeaways from a guy you've known for a really long time, Guy Haberman. Thoughts after that interview with my new partner?
Yeah, it's funny because like even though like we've known and worked and been friends with Guy for 10 plus years, still get to learn things about him through doing stuff like this. I mean, some stuff I already knew and like connect with him on like being a military kid, like so having that kind of whole childhood of your growing up here and there or whatever else. I was interested, like he had a different take on it than I did. Like for me, it was always like kind of just to me, I felt like it made me just adaptable. Like when I come into a situation, I usually come in with my mouth closed and my ears up and just trying to figure stuff out. Um, but that's kind of how, that's, again, I did, from K through 12, I went to 9 different schools. So like, I know, I yeah, I know exactly. I didn't go overseas like he did. There was no stops in Turkey, because his dad was in the Air Force, mine was in the Army. But yeah, get all that, and then also working in minor league baseball. I mean, that shared connection there too. I mean, now mine was a long time ago. I'm 25 years since working in the minors, and it was funny because he was working with, Buster and Mad Bum and stuff like that up at AAA. I was down in the high A system. But it was funny because even for what that team was, like we had so many future big leaguers come through there. And it was almost like, imagine like if you were an FCS team that had like 7 guys going to the NFL, like the odds were like almost about the same, probably, I would say. So, yeah, it was cool to, even though I knew both of those things about him, it was kind of cool to hear him talk about both of those. And, look forward to watching the 2 U call games this year.
Yeah, that's amazing. I did not know that about you. And you're right. Like, we can know people forever, but there's still so much to their story. I love this conversation because, there's one thing to call the game. Like, anybody who's a professional can stand next to anybody in a booth and you could do the mechanics of a game. But a great game, a elite broadcast, I think you can feel it differently. Like, as a fan of the game, I don't know if you would agree, but I believe that there's certain crews that I'll watch and be like, these guys vibe. Like, I love hanging out with these guys. I felt like I've had that for a long time with Ted Robinson. I felt that Herbstreit and Fowler have that. I feel that there's certain crews like Gary Danielson, he has that. Like, certain duos, you feel like these guys actually like each other. And the first time Guy and I had a conversation when he got the job, I asked him like to share his experience. I remember when he called me, and I'm not saying anything that would offend him or make him maybe would make him blush a little bit. I don't know, but he was just so happy to have earned that right. And I think for all of us or all of you in any industry, like you just want your shot. And I can remember Trent Dilfer telling me something years ago. He goes, "You're going to be like that country singer." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, that country singer has been playing in a bar and just crushing it for 20 years. And then all of a sudden somebody watches you and bam, and you're Chris Stapleton or something like that. And I'm not saying that that's Guy or myself by any stretch of the imagination, but the idea of in broadcasting, probably much like many professions, but definitely performing arts in the performance professions, the longer you hang, the better shot you got. And I think if you went back to your producing days early on, especially in the talent and it probably in production as well, like it's tough. Like you get to 30 and your friends are making 6 figures. They're taking long vacations. You're nodding your head like you live that. Same thing in broadcasting. Like you dedicate your life, your weekends to a sport because it's played on the weekends. Like there's no really way around it unless you just want to be the Mac guy in like late November.
Yeah.
So I'm just so happy for him to have this stage and this shot because he's good and he's earned it. And I can't wait. We're going to throw down. We are not going to hold back. And I also feel really lucky, man. Like I get you in my life during the week. I get Guy on my life on the weekends. I mean, really, you and I talk every day. So like, it's just really cool. And then you add in Rhett Lewis, who will be on the show next week to kind of recap week 1. Just a fascinating individual and a guy who's become a really close friend in a matter of weeks. Just feel really fortunate to be on a crew because we know this industry, man, you don't always get crews that are special. And I think this one has a chance to be that.
No, to your point, I mean, this industry really is kind of a game of survivor. Like when you're young, like you make no money. You work every weekend. You work every holiday. To your point, your friends are doing this and that, and you're like, oh, I'm just hoping to, scrape a couple of nickels together to get some Jack in the Box tacos. It's just like, you really, I remember like early on in my TV side, like when I was working at Fox Sports, and thinking like, I can't afford to work here. Like, I can't pay my rent and bills. And I just kind of stuck it out. And thankfully I did, because that's, I've somehow made it here. But it really is kind of like, you just have to have that, that intestinal fortitude to just be like, this is what, because I don't know what else, like, during the pandemic, it was just like, we didn't know if we would ever have these kind of jobs again. I tried to find like real jobs, and I'm like, I don't know how to do that. Like,
Totally.
This is kind of, this is where I've netted out. So.
Yeah. Well said, man. All right. We know this episode was a little long, but really wanted just to continue to get to know Guy. You watched both Jim and I get to know him on a deeper level in real time. Lock this game in 7:30 Eastern, right? 4:30 Pacific. Idaho, Jason Eck. We got great stories about him. He and I used to coach the USC summer camps back in like 2002, 2003. So we got some old photos from that we will share in the broadcast. And of course, Dylan Gabriel, all everything. I think he's a special player, and I think Dan Lanning is a special coach. So we'll see how this one shakes out in prime time on Saturday night. We will, of course, all be on the chatter, which is social media, throughout Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And on Sunday, a little bonus action for you. We got awards. Yeah, we got awards. Cannot wait. So make sure you keep it locked at y-option.com. Really excited to share what we've come up with along with our founding partner, 76. All right, I'm going on a plane. I'm going to hit my coffee shop gym. I got a yo-yo yogi class. I'm taking Rhett Lewis too. Hit Whole Foods, driving down to Eugene. Probably call you 6 times on the way down. And away we go. Week 1. Stay safe. Enjoy. For Jim, go Wildcats. And for me, go Pitt. Looks like we're playing 2 quarterbacks. Who knows what's going on, but it's week 1. Peace.